The colourful and exuberant parade marked the rights of the freedom of the city conferred on HMAS Rushcutter by Port Macquarie Council in 1989. Police Chief Superintendent Ian Campbell, together with Commander of the Mounted Police, Sergeant Bob Dibb, were part of the mounted contingent. The pair issued the traditional challenge to the Naval Party. Royal Naval Commodore David York and the Mayor saluted the parade from a special platform constructed in Horton Street. This was followed by a short ceremony on the town green near the War Memorial. Commodore York and the official party then went indoors after a successful parade. Waratah's Paul Allardyce started the game in dynamic form, making strong inroads into Toronto territory. Not long after, Waratah winger Darren Slockey towed through a drop ball and scored a length of the field try. Scorpions' Mal Graham wasn't going to give in easily and showed the way for his forwards, and they rallied behind their captain. But it just wasn't enough, the Cheetahs finishing up winners 16-4. The win could have been much bigger though if fullback Tony Picken had a better night with the boot. The rest of the round will be completed tomorrow, the teams in the red hosting the home game.
Flanked by an escort of light horsemen, the Governor of New South Wales, Rear Admiral Peter Sinclair, and his wife arrived at the Shire Council chambers for the first of a series of official functions. The civic and councillors. Late this afternoon, the vice-regal couple opened a new bus interchange in Muswellbrook. Tonight, the Governor will attend a military reunion, and tomorrow his duties include attending the planting of a memorial grove for those who died in Vietnam. Although the focus hasn't been totally on Rear Admiral Sinclair, former Muswellbrook civic leader and state parliamentarian John Jobling has become the first person to receive the title Freeman of the Shire.
The night didn't start well for the Falcons. Grant Kruger missed a goal and the Suns immediately turned it into points. Ricky Jones leapt like a man possessed, slam dunking his side into the lead. Everett Stevens racked up only 17 for the night. Not even lanky Terry Dozier could pull a hat-trick. He was often blocked and it was almost like the Suns had trained all week to turn a rebound into instant points. And with 4 points separating them and 4 minutes to go, the Falcons watched the game slip away through the hands of Jones. Final score, Townsville Suns 98, Falcons 89.
It's the one day of the year that horse manure piles up in the main street of Scone as all other vehicles give way to the animal that's seen as the lifeblood of the town. Horse Week was launched today with a procession of all manner of things equestrian. Entrants touched on themes ranging from the sporting ground to history to just plain cute.
We had 90 entries, over 500 participants, which means we've got over 12% of the town's population took part in the parade.
And those town folk not actually in the parade seem to be watching from the roadside and the shop verandas. While this event is a celebration of one of the industries that supports Scone, the Horse Week in itself brings in thousands of tourists and their money to the town.
I think all the business people recognise it as a great strength of the town anyway, and a pulling together of the town as a community. So.
The week-long celebrations include a farriers and blacksmiths competition, a rodeo, polo matches and the Scone Cup races. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Program at Maitland and that the other hospitals we've allocated additional funding to will significantly reduce waiting lists, and at Kurri Hospital, for example, they've already cut the waiting list for cataract surgery by over 30%.
The VMO's dispute has the potential to drain health services only in Newcastle and Maitland. Pay arrangements for VMOs working at other hospitals in the region are different and unaffected by the Arbitration Commission's decision. Dr Tim Smythe says he's been holding discussions with the 200 or so doctors that are involved in the row since March and is confident of nutting out a deal.
The overwhelming majority don't want to disrupt the system and want to continue looking after patients, and I'm hopeful that through a process of discussion we'll be able to resolve things at a local level.
Should negotiations fail before the VMO's June 1 deadline, Dr Smythe says there won't be any great disruption to local services.
Each member of the visiting medical staff does have to give us 3 months' notice of a resignation, so even if they were to submit resignations, that leaves plenty of time for further discussions.
Further discussions about another issue are likely to keep Dr Smythe busy after June. Dr Smythe today maintained an inquiry into the Hunters AIDS services will get underway in August, despite accusations that he'd abandoned the idea.
Berkeley Vale Public School students closed their books and turned to practical experience today. It was their annual Environment Day, the event organised by a parents group called Community Awareness Reinforcing Environmental Solicitude, or CARES for short. While some students learnt about solar energy theories, kindergarten were given hands-on experience with our native plants, identifying the various types and textures. Then came Bush Tucker, Greening Australia representative Ken Godfrey explaining how to manufacture edible items from bush foods, including emu meat style spring rolls. The school is also a leader in the recycling field. It recycles goods weekly, the money raised used to green the school. The school has also received a $20,000 grant from the Environmental Protection Authority to produce a book on recycling for schools.
It's going to show them how to set up a committee, how to start a recycling program within the school, what things can be recycled and how to actually recycle, using volunteers, using the school really as a linchpin, combining the communities.
Mrs Rayner expects the book to be launched in July and sold to schools statewide.
The Lake Macquarie Coast Guard station monitored radio calls from boats on the lake, which had spotted a slick off Swansea. Police Launch Macquarie was called in to investigate and located a long murky drift off Nesca Park. On closer examination, the Environment Protection Authority identified the slick as an algae bloom and not oil as earlier feared. Further testing will be carried out by the EPA, but by late this afternoon much of the slick had broken up. Outside the lake off Belmont, workers stepped up on the Hunter Water Corporation's sewage ocean outfall project. A barge was towed into place to begin linking the West Lake sewer lines which cross the floor of Lake Macquarie to diffusers on the seabed. A trench will be dug to accommodate lengths of pipe which are being assembled in cradles on the beach. The pipes will be joined, then dragged out to sea for the almost 2 kilometre outfall. Constructions on the beach will then be disassembled once the pipeline has been laid. The system will have the capacity to cope with effluent from a population of 450,000.
"22-year-old Michael MacArthur may have been fitting and machining at Broadmeadows Custom Hydraulics today, but his mind was on Britain in springtime.
No, I haven't been anywhere over there. That would be real exciting to experience a new culture, a new land.
Michael is one of 3 selected from the hundreds involved in group apprenticeship schemes around the state to go on the UK study tour, financed by the Queen Elizabeth II Silver Jubilee Trust. After 6 weeks of scanning the applications, a panel of 4 judges decided the Hunter Valley Training Company apprentice deserved the airline ticket and the experience.
Working alongside people in different countries, just learning the work that they do, I'm sure would be a great benefit to me.
And Michael's confident the trip will benefit his career prospects.
To get to a level of this, you have to be competent and capable of your work. And being nominated to this level will show employers that I'm a committed worker.
While Newcastle has had to contend with a series of smaller spills into its waterways, emergency services admit that for such a large industrial seaport, the city has been free of a catastrophe. But until now, the fear has been how could a major oil or chemical spill be quickly contained?
Normally we'd be looking to get it from Melbourne, and you've got to look at the time frame. So if we had a spillage around Newcastle and the time frame from getting it from Melbourne, say 4-6 hours, the oil would spread and of course a bigger disaster.
3M Australia and Freight Rail have combined to beat that tyranny of distance, setting up a $22,000 stockpile of chemical and oil sorbents to be stored at the Broadmeadow Locomotive Depot.
The reason we're here at Broadmeadow Loco is it's a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-day operation, so anyone within Newcastle who has a problem can come here, access the equipment and clean up the mess quickly.
Superintendent Cleary says a stockpile for Newcastle has been overdue, and this equipment will now help the conglomerate of business representatives known as the Mutual Aid Group to be prepared for environmental spills.
The mutual aid groups now have got a real fighting force on their hands and really enhances the capabilities of all the mutual aid groups around Newcastle.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Security guards Eric Callan and Craig Phillips were investigating a report early this morning that 2 men were stealing a car in the hospital's main car park. They found the pair sitting in this red Commodore. The front window had been smashed and the ignition tampered with.
When they were challenged by the security officers, one of the offenders has produced what we believe to be a sawn-off shotgun and fired a number of shots at the security officers.
The first shot hit Eric Callan, who was standing about 3 metres away. Although injured and bleeding, Mr Callan turned and fled with his companion. According to police, at least one more shot was fired at the unarmed guards, the pellet striking 2 nearby cars. By the time police arrived, the bandits had fled into bushland at the back of the hospital. A sniffer dog traced the men's scent to Elamorvale, where police found what they believed to be a footprint belonging to one of the men. The car park was also searched, but the weapon wasn't found. Police believe the men were planning to carry out an armed hold-up later in the day and needed the car as a getaway vehicle. The car park is often targeted by thieves. Just last week, a car stolen from the John Hunter was used to ram the doors of this hardware business in Merewether.
We lose cars from time to time. It's a problem common to most car parks.
Police have released descriptions of the 2 men. Both are aged in their 20s, and one was carrying a sawn-off shotgun. They could have been seen in the Elamorvale area around 5:15 this morning.
Doctors say Mr Callan is in a satisfactory condition. It's believed he was shot in the right shoulder, the pellets also striking him in the head and the back. Had the shot been 3 centimetres to the left, and Mr Callan might not have been so lucky. His companion Craig Phillips has been treated for shock. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
There was nothing in it for the first 2 quarters. At one stage, Newcastle was a few points behind. Although it still seemed like anybody's game, the Falcons' defensive barrage confined the Cannons to just 11 points in the first quarter, the lowest scoring rate in this year's NBL. Newcastle went to the main break 1 point ahead. Everett Stevens was to score 30 points for the Falcons and opened the lead on Canberra, who seemed continually off the mark. Looking more like Hannibal Lecter after last week's nose job, Mean Al Green lived up to his name. Time-out was called. The Feathers provided a tension breaker as coaches pulled their sides together. The crowd could smell victory after 2 Falcons road losses. Dozier ran away with the game for a final 97-85 win over Canberra. It was round 3 for the Coffs Harbour and District Sporting Car Club's competition. The last 2 meets have been washed out, but the dry winding tracks of the Wedding Bells Forest proved ideal for last night's rally. Of 26 starters, only 20 finished. 5 crashed out and there was 1 breakdown. Peter Roberts and Darren Spohr in a Mazda RX-2 led the field, beating Scott McCloy and Ross McMahon in a Toyota Sprinter by just 24 seconds. Tony Creer and Annette Davis in another Mazda came in 3rd. The next round of the competition will be run at Taree in a fortnight.
A host of community social clubs converged on the showground for the event, including the Army, Coffs Harbour Council and the Forestry Commission. In the hotly contested arm wrestling section, the Army produced a secret weapon. Other wacky contests included horizontal bungee jumping, the wheelie bin race, gumboot throwing, a four-legged race and obstacle course.
The Army team just don't know how to play straight. They've cheated in every game so far, but it's all right because they've got a negative score.
One young lady wasn't shy to give her team a helping hand in winning their horizontal bungee jumping event. Money raised from the competition will go to Coffs Harbour State Emergency Service.
The development weekend saw everyone from the 12-year-olds to the over 25s and opens in all 40 teams take to the courts. Some individuals are seen as the raw recruits destined for state academy competition and possibly beyond. Players in the current North Coast Academy squad were on hand as role models in training yesterday, but mixing it for points today. There'll be a similar camp at Kempsey in early July, then the 3-day NIB games in Newcastle. Now in its 16th year, Swansea Bowling Club's Surf Club Day has seen the surf lifesaving movement about $250,000 better off. Each year, valued sponsors put up prizes such as rescue boards, walkie-talkies, lifesaving floats and training manuals, and one lucky club takes home a fully equipped inflatable rescue boat worth about $8,000. So far, the competition has put 15 such boats into action on the state's beaches. All clubs go into a lucky draw for the boat, and this year Avoca on the Central Coast won it. Almost 400 bowlers played non-stop through the day. No team goes home without a prize. In the Pennants Championship played around Newcastle and Lake Macquarie over the weekend, local bowlers showed their dominance in 6 of 7 divisions. The semi-finals will be played at Dubbo West, Ettalong and Roselands in Sydney next weekend. Old rivalries opened up at Townsend Oval in a physical clash between Lakes and Souths. From early in, it looked like being a hard-fought game, Souths pounding against a defensive wall with little avail. By half-time, the Lions were trailing Lakes 6-8, but it was no easy pickings for the Seagulls either. The strain was showing on battle-weary troops into the second half, and Lakes grew that extra leg to carry them on. Final scoreboard, Lakes 30, Souths 10. Someone is watching. For any move or tactical edge in this tight track competition, drivers with fingers on the pulse transmit signals to guide their miniature off-roaders through the frantic stops, starts and swerves of radio-controlled racing. The little leapers run at 25,000 to 55,000 revs per minute, hitting about 45 kilometres an hour. The Newcastle Radio Control Car Club organised this meet, competitors every bit as serious as in full-scale motor racing. Cars have pit stops and tyre changes and cost their owners anything from $300 to $3,000.
Teams from Hunter Valley and Australian Mines are in Singleton training for this Saturday's annual district and state titles for both open cut and underground mines. The open cut section has attracted 18 teams. A South Australian team from Lee Creek Coalfields and an Indonesian team are competing for the first time. Today, both squads were brushing up on mine rescue techniques. For Indonesia, it's also a learning experience. Mine rescue was introduced only 3 years ago by Australian rescue instructor Kel Bendai. Mr Bendai is now training the team, which incidentally includes 2 females. According to Betty Runtu, gender shouldn't be a discriminator.
I think we can do like the woman, like the man can do it.
In Indonesia, the team's rescue skills could also be utilised outside the CRA BHP-owned mine where they work. It's situated in East Kalimantan, formerly Borneo.
It's just not just the role of mines rescue. It's firefighting in the town, it's life support in the town, right down to delivering the babies.
In Saturday's competition, teams will execute a variety of emergency situations. The team with the most points wins. They'll then compete in the Queensland titles. In the underground competition, the winning team will go on to the Australian titles. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Normally a sleepy seaside village, Boat Harbour is abuzz with angry residents. They're angry about a 70-lot subdivision proposed by a development company called Wimpy that the residents believe will affect the environment. And they're angry with Port Stephens Shire Council for having approved the project without, they say, fully considering its impact on them and the wildlife.
They haven't done their homework. To me, the councillors like ostriches. They've stuck their head in the sand and they're not going to pull them out.
To calm the residents' fears for the environment, the council is looking at creating a wildlife corridor around the subdivision. But the locals say that's not good enough.
The council's decision was only to continue with negotiations for the proposed corridor.
But at least one councillor believes the development should go ahead without council having to even consider buying up land to create a corridor.
I think we've got more to do with our money than go around buying land to satisfy a few disgruntled residents.
What worries the residents even more is the Wimpy project is the first of 4 developments planned for Boat Harbour.
Most of the easily developed land has been developed. They're now getting into marginal areas, wetland areas, areas of scenic beauty, and yes, this is the tip of the iceberg so far as people's reaction to adverse development is concerned.
I think it's a syndrome of, I'm here, no one else comes, so I think I support it fully, always will.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
He might be 62 years old, but Dave Gervin hasn't lost the spring in his step. Every day he pulls on the running shoes and racks up 20 to 30 kilometres. 15 years ago he decided to quit water skiing and take up jogging.
I feel better than I ever was, I don't mind getting sweaty because I have a cold beer when I come home,
But he doesn't always wait till he gets in the front door. The magic elixir. Half a dozen later, and he's feeling revitalised and ready to get back into stride.
I do that every now and then to get mental toughness. So you're out on the road for 5 hours, so when you get down there you can have a beer and then you can come home, and it makes you better than the other person.
Although he can often be seen jogging around Woy Woy, most of Dave's kilometres are done off the beaten track.
Running on the street, and it's hard on your joints and that, where the bush is softer on your feet.
So far, Dave has competed in more than 52 marathons, and he intends to run in this weekend's City to Surf in Gosford, a mere 11-kilometre sprint. However, marathon running isn't his last physical challenge.
If I can ever sell my shop, which I'm trying to now, I'm going to train for the Ironman. That's my ambition.
I mean, again, a lot of people would say, hang on, he's supposed to be relaxing.
It becomes easier as you get older. It becomes very cunning.
And he looks healthy enough to give Guy Leach and Trevor Hendy a run for their money. The 17-man squad stretched out around Harker Oval last night But before everyone got too comfortable, they all underwent a demanding medical from Dr. Janet Hall. There was some concern over Paul Tideman's calf, however everyone was given the all clear. Coach Carl Hutchinson ran his side through a strong workout, making sure all the players became familiar with the set plays. Selectors have picked a tough forward pack and plenty of speed in the backs. And they'll need every edge they can get because the Illawarra team will have a number of former Sydney first graders in their ranks. Although selection in the Newcastle team is valued, it also has its disadvantages. Cessnock's Jamie Forbes and Lake's Paul Tyburn can't play for their club sides on Friday night, but the rest of the team is eligible to play in Sunday's round. The Steel City League match will be played at No. 2 Sports Ground on Saturday afternoon at 1:30.
The new 6-room infant section is a welcome addition to the Erina Heights complex. Built at a cost of $300,000, it will allow the institution to accommodate a strong demand from the local community for places at the school. And Central Coast Grammar knows what side its bread is buttered. Opening the additions, the manager of the National Australia Bank at Gosford, Ray Baldwin, who financed the project. He was helped by a Year 1 student, Peter Lee. But it was the entranceway to the new wing that aroused most interest this afternoon. As the youngsters arrive each day, they'll pass through a 3-dimensional forest mural, past giant frogs and other water creatures, under a giant butterfly as it emerges stage by stage from its chrysalis. And it's definitely hands-on. This little girl already dreaming of her future days at Central Coast Grammar when this will be her special domain.
It's a familiar sight to motorists on John Renshaw Drive at Beresfield west of Newcastle. Banks of traffic waiting to get onto the New England Highway. But for the first time today, it wasn't a stop sign halting them, but traffic lights. The federally funded $75,000 set of lights is intended to help control the expected 50% jump in the number of vehicles using the intersection once the nearby F3 freeway extensions are opened later this year. But in the eyes of Beresfield residents, the lights dim beside the original proposal of a flyover at the intersection.
Geez, they can put men on the moon and they can't even build a highway.
They're a bloody nuisance really, because now we're going to have trucks stopping everywhere. Before we had the trucks stopping once at the stop sign on John Renshaw Drive, now we've got trucks stopping on highways both sides.
They say the highway intersection is now a black spot waiting for a tragedy.
Well, as we're standing here talking now, we've just seen a car go through a red light.
State MP John Price got to turn on the lights in the absence of his federal colleagues Eric Fitzgibbon and Bob Brown, who as Roads Transport Minister proposed this cheaper stopgap alternative. But Mr Price admits the lights are...
It's a recognition, I suppose, that this is a disaster area. I would hope that it's sufficiently embarrassing to both governments for them to get on with it, make a decision, put up the dollars and get the flyovers commenced and get this road network sorted out once and for all.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.